Call the September 13th, 2016 Transportation Committee meeting to order. Madam Secretary, let it be known that Dempsey Lambert, Oliver Joseph, and Aaron Lawler are absent. We got Mr. Chairman Randy Kluwart filling in with us. We appreciate that tonight. Invocations will be led by Mr. Kluwart, followed by the pledge.
Everyone, please stand. Dear Lord, we thank you for this day. Dear Lord, with all the devastation we've had in the parish with the flood, we look forward to the passing of hurricane season. Please keep us safe until we can get past this. We ask that you look on all the families and ask patience, and look upon the elected officials and let us have patience even more to help the people of the parish. We ask this in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Rand. We'll move on to number 3, a public comment period. Anyone wanting to speak on an agenda item, please sign in and you have your 3 minutes to speak on it. Chairman's report. Only thing, just tell the citizens really be careful in the devastated areas. We have a lot of debris on our roads and some safety factors are there, so please try to be safe on our roads. Number 5, acceptance of July 12th, 2016 minutes.
Motion to accept.
Got a motion by Mr. Castle, second by Mr. Kluwart. Any discussion? No opposition? So moved. Move on to number 6, the DPW report and committee concerns. Mr. Bill Rue, Public Works.
Yes, sir. Chairman, council members. Just real briefly, we're going to go over some of the older projects, but really not too much has been moving on the DOTD projects. Of course, the Parish project, 2015 is complete. We were looking at adding a few to that contract to get some things done, but instead, we're moving forward with the new contract for our overlay projects within the parish. We are finishing up on that RFQ that's going out. We should be finished within the next 2 weeks, maybe this week. And as soon as it is, we're going to put it out, and hopefully we'll have it back within about 30 days. And of course, that's the new contract in which we are going to have an annual contract for paving overlay projects, at which time we're going to have a full list of roads coming to the committee and to the council for approval. But we're going to allocate those roads out in priority basis to the contractor in phases, as many as they can handle at one time. And then we'll go to the next phase as they're finishing up. That'll give us a little bit of leeway for us monitoring what they're doing and keeping the projects going pretty good. At any point in time, like we mentioned before, the council members will be, in the committee, will be actually approving the roads before it goes to the contractor. We're going to be budgeting $4 million a year for these type projects. And again, it'll be done on a priority basis with approval of the council. Again, we should have that finished within the next, I'm hoping 30 days. It might take a little bit longer to actually sign the contract, but after we do, we're going to proceed immediately this year with some emergency projects, some tied to the storm event, the flood event, some are just long-standing problems that we need to rectify as soon as possible. And again, all of those projects will be coming to you for approval prior to giving it out to the contractor.
Okay. Ms. Castle, I have a question for you.
Yeah, Bill, thank you so much. I do want to mention that I appreciate all the effort on Bluff Road to get that open. I know that you worked closely with DOTD to enable this, kind of experiment, this technology out there with the temporary signalization. And all of that was removed today. But I want to caution the public that while they have put some cones along the edge of that road, there is no shoulder on the edge of that road, and there is very deep water off the edge of that road.
Absolutely.
And so unless you really got one of those little tools in your car that you want to break your window out of when you go in there, you might ought to be careful, because it's going to be dangerous, and it is really easy to slip off the road on that low side. I have done it before in dry conditions, and if I had done it today, I'd be using my little tool to break my window and get out, because water would be coming in your car. So please, please be careful there. My question is, we at one time, and correct my memory, and someone else may have to help you with it, but at some point, I think it was when Ben Laurie was here, we had a list of roads presented to us based on the survey that had been done that indicated what their level of priority was based on the problem with the road. So will we be using that as a guideline, that original document, as well as certainly blending in those that are affected by this water condition?
Absolutely. What we are doing, though, we're taking that same exact list and we're going through it again and checking everything and make sure that they're in the proper order, as severity and as classification and use, to make sure that they fit the status of moving forward on immediately, or can it be held back to a later date. So again, all of it has to come in, and we're going to be using pretty much the same system that Ben had put together for those roads, because it is a good system. And so basically, yes, ma'am, we are going to use the same system.
I'm very, very glad to hear that. I was impressed with the work that was done at that time, and however, I do understand that there might need to be some consideration given to those roads affected by this high water event.
Right.
Thank you.
And again, when we bring that list to you, we will show you the difference, from what was the order they were in before and the new order, and there are some substitutions that may be put in, and we'll explain why.
Okay. That's great. Thank you.
Madam Secretary, let it be known that Mr. Aaron Lola and OJ is back in. Made it. Appreciate it, guys. Mr. Cloyd.
Yeah, Bill, you kind of halfway answered my question. It's basically, if you're looking at the roads now with the flood impact, and some things may change on that priority list.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I want to make clear to everyone. Thank you, man.
Aaron, any questions?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bill, for being here. Highway 42, I heard that the letting has now been delayed to September. I believe.
Yes, that is being delayed, a little bit longer.
Do we know why?
I do not, but I'm setting up a meeting for many reasons with DOTD. We're supposed to have had it over the last couple of weeks, but with all the problems, we pushed it back a couple. So I'm hoping to have that meeting next week. And the function of that is to bring me up to speed on all DOTD projects. Some of them, is like your roundabouts. We've got some funding for the park. We've got some funding through safety money for some of the other stuff. LA 70 is another one. They were just waiting for our check on that, and then they're going to go through the bid process, and that's for the overlay of the rehab of LA 70. But again, my main function is sit down and pencil in everything that's going on and get a good understanding. At that point in time, I can give you some more information, exact information on what's happening with all the DOTD projects that's on the books right now.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, Bill, back to that road, and you're going to reprioritize funding. I mean, of course, these roads was damaged by the weather and everything, and we getting assistance from the federal government to redo some of these roads. Would that increase our road project any with funding wise?
What's
with
gonna
additional
happen-
funds?
Well, what we're going to do, in fact, one of the things that we're doing now is assessing all of our infrastructure, including bridges, and DOTD is helping us out with that, but also all our roads. And in fact, we went out for RFP for assistance on that from another engineering or group of engineering firms that might want to, can come in and assist us to do a full infrastructure assessment and for the FEMA. getting refunded from FEMA, fill out the form, make sure everything is T's crossed, I's dotted, whatever. So make sure we can get this funding. Now, probably because of that, we may increase the budget. In other words, we might still go with our 4 million for roads that's already been accepted as, subpar that we need to do some work on. If it looks like a number of roads that's not on that list has become in disrepair due to the storm, and we know for fairly certain that we're going to get reimbursed from FEMA on that, well, those will be added separately. So when I say the 4 million, that's on stuff, that routine maintenance overlay that's been planned. But that could rise double, maybe, even, depending on our assessment that is FEMA reimbursed.
I understand. And at right now, from my understanding, we're at 90%?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's all. Thank you.
Any more questions for Bill?
Yeah, well,
Is that
and
it,
again,
Bill?
I
You got
go
some
on.
more?
Yeah, we're going through some more reports. The one thing I want to make sure that everybody understands, and that has been some comments made of various people about a savings of $4 million or $3 million or something like this. That was never the intention when we were talking about it before. The whole idea is you got to understand that our maintenance fund is coming out of our general fund basically. The 2/3 or the half of the fund is our project fund. What we're doing is reprioritizing our projects. So, and again, we went into the reorganization and everything else. We're going to be saving money in that, but that's money saved out of the general fund, pretty much for operations. What we're looking at doing is being able to save or reprioritize our funding, our money in our major projects, to be able to move $2 to $4 million a year over into our major mega projects, road improvements, which are for the most part on DOTD, roads right now. But that's your 4-laning of major highways, and that's your roundabouts, and that's your a lot of your stuff that's going to be part of our master transportation plan, corridor preservation, everything else. So that's all going to be moving into the mega projects of our master transportation plan. So I don't want anybody to get the idea that because of the reorganization, the way we're reprioritizing, that's all of a sudden the general administration is going to have $4 to $5 million to put into something else, be it recreation or whatever the case might be. This money is for projects. It's dedicated money, the same as money for drainage. We just reprioritizing that within that construction fund to be able to use $2 to $4 million for the major projects that we're going into. Okay, so, and again, I'll be glad to answer some questions on that issue.
Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, Bill, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because that have been an issue that everyone been asking that question. You, and I don't want to say you Pacific, but that's the way it was. You supposed to save $4 million.
Right.
And I'm glad you bringing this up and clearing this up. And I hope in the future you will identify those projects where you did save some money,
Right.
and reorganize it to some other priority.
That's right.
Because you're correct. The public and myself also thought it was in that manner.
Right.
So please keep up with us, up to date on those projects like that where,
Sure.
everyone would understand where
Now,
that funding
and
is going.
Having said all of that, and again, we have 2 pots of money we're working with. Your general fund, your maintenance fund, which is out of your general administration, your it's O2 fund, and your project fund, which is dedicated fund, which sits there. And unless you use it, but we are going to use it. We're building that fund up for our total transportation fund projects, major road projects within the parish. Again, having said all of this, by the reorganization itself, we're hoping, and it'll take another year because we're blending all these 8 other departments into 1 or 2 major departments. We are anticipating a savings from if you take, for instance, each separate department from last year, and you add up the total funds for each separate department, for operations. By combining that, based on the new total allocation for operations, I'm hoping to save a good bit of money, a substantial amount of money by doing that and putting it into one system. But again, the whole comment about like I said, the $4 million or $3 million, that's a reprioritization of our major transportation fund, construction fund, which is dedicated funds. Okay.
And Bill, I mean, I understand that concept, and I'm just going to request that you give us something in a written report where you reorganize and where you can show that you might have had two bodies in it and you reduce it to one and you save 30% in that.
Absolutely.
And that would at least give us a better picture of exactly how did you save that money for us, and in reallocating it, ain't no problem. It just, once again, it just, like you say, when you say $4 million, everybody went, woo, we got money. So appreciate if you do that and keep us up to date with it in right.
But, and again, well, the whole purpose of getting into that whole subject was to say, how are we going to finance or how are we going to put money into these mega projects without a tax increase? And the whole thing is, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to reprioritize our major construction fund to pull money on these and put it into to this other way of other transportation. And that's how we're going to fund it, hopefully without any raising of any taxes. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Any questions? Mr. Aaron?
Yeah, I'm a little confused as to how we're saving costs. So, like, when we combine the two departments, is this through administrative costs, fewer employees? How are we doing that?
Some of it is fewer employees in the sense of we are moving some employees over to do multiple functions, especially supervision and other things. But if you kind of look at it, and again, it gets kind of confusing because, right off the bat, we don't have the engineering department, but most of the engineering department was funded by drainage and roads anyway. But so that is eliminated, but we moving that money back into the general operation fund of DPW. But if you look at our budget, in a budget book, you'll see engineering department, phone bill, allocated to maintenance, allocated to this, allocated to that, vehicles. It's running, it got its own little set of fund items right there. And each department had that. By condensing all that into one and then adding the numbers up, I think you see, where we can better operate by bringing it together and having that phone bill going to be one phone bill for DPW. Now, it's going to be, it won't be configured the same way, but again, when you look at it, the whole thing, I think you'd be, you have to say that we have to improve productivity by doing some of this. But the bad thing is it's going to take us about a year to see, because we're operating right now under the old system, on a hybrid of the old system and the new system. Whereas we've got the funds in place, we've got the departments in place under the old system throughout this year. Like engineering is still, got some funds that we're being used out of that. Fleet department the same way. So anyway, it's real confusing. The finance department and the DPW is trying to work together right now to get that together. The real deal is going to be about this time next year, when we go through our budget for the 2018. But then we're going to be analyzing, coming in, what's being spent, percentage spent all throughout the first part of next year. And then we can compare that to what it was this year, to the old system. And then you can really see the difference. So to tell you right now, that it's going to be X amount of dollars savings, I can't, but it will be some savings.
Are we talking tens of thousands, hundreds, millions?
Well, it's, again, I hate to I threw that number out before in talking about our major fund, construction fund, and it was misinterpreted. But I'm hoping, and again, this is just my hope, I'm hoping in the hundreds of thousands, at least, if not more, overall funding for operations, by doing that. So anyway, it's kind of, It's just, it's kind of hard to put a number on it right now. I can say that with the construction fund because I know what I'm cutting out. And I know what I'm not gonna do and what I'm gonna use that money for. So I can tell you right now, it's several $1 million that I'm moving over to really put into the major transportation plan or fund, you know, to handle some of these mega projects. Because I'm cutting out stuff that I deem unnecessary. Okay.
Any more questions for Bill on this topic? Okay. Some more, Bill, on your report?
One thing, the qualifications for submittals came in for the master transportation consultant. We had 4 that submitted some qualifications. Of that, only 3 really are qualified. I think one of them submitted by mistake. So you have 3 qualified submittals. We have the meeting Thursday to score and choose at, I think, around 9 o'clock. And so at that point in time, we will have made a selection, a recommendation that we will bring to the next committee hearing for acceptance and bring to the full council. We're hoping to get that done pretty quick so we can get the contract in place. One of the first things that's needed is to assist this other engineering firm coming in, but also assist us in putting together the road assessment list and prioritization of that to determine exactly where we're at right now. We hope to have everything in place within maybe 30 to 45 days, contract signed and everything.
Okay, so that's gonna be on the October Transportation
Right.
Committee. You're gonna bring it to us?
Yep.
Okay.
And we also, like I mentioned a minute ago, we should have at the same time, we'll have the contract ready for your approval for the pavement program, the new pavement program that we're putting in. We'll have that ready for your acceptance at the same time and try to speed that up to execution also.
Bill, I've been having several calls on Berto Road. If you get a chance, just pass by that road and see where it's at on the
Berto?
list. Yeah, Berto off of 74. Quite a few complaints on that.
Okay.
It's a little dead-end road, I believe.
Yes, sir.
If you don't mind, just take a look, tell me what
Right.
you think. Appreciate it. Any more questions on that? Your report's finished. We'll move on to
Unless you have more questions, that's
Any more?
finished.
I just,
Go ahead. Mr. Joseph?
Bill, on your report, I appreciate your report and everything, but can you provide us with an outline that like we've been having in the past on all the stuff that you're gonna talk about?
Yes, sir. And I do have something, but I failed to make the copies for y'all, and I'll send it on to you. But I have a report of the engineering of what we did in the parish as far as our projects, existing projects, and also the OTD stuff. I will send that to you tomorrow, but I didn't make copies for you, so I
Okay,
apologize for that.
thanks, that's all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Number 7 is our proposed resolution 2016-2018 priority for off-system bridge replacement certification program renewal. Mr. Bill?
This is a mandatory resolution, has to be passed by the council every year. So requesting that you accept it and take it to the full council for
Got
resolution.
a motion by Mr. Kluwat,
Second.
second by Mr. Joseph. Any discussion? No opposition? So moved to the full council. Number 8, roads for discussion of acceptance into the parish maintenance system as followed. Mr. Ricky DeArmond?
Yeah, I'm here to present y'all some roads that need to be taken into the parish maintenance system. This subdivision, their road system's been on a 2-year bond. They did have one failure in the roadway, but when they were doing a second filing, we did get them to go ahead and correct that problem in the first filing. So I'm bringing the roads to you to be accepted tonight. Y'all want to do them one at a time like normal?
Yes.
Ty?
Yeah.
Parker Place Drive, 2,046 feet.
All right, hear a motion?
Motion.
Got a motion by Mr. Joseph, second by Mrs. Casso. Any discussion? Any opposition? So moved.
Capel Avenue, 718 feet.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Joseph,
Second.
second by Mr. Law.
Buchanan Court.
Hang on just a sec, Rick. Any
Okay.
discussion? So moved. Okay.
Buchanan Court, 645 feet.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Joseph.
Second.
Second by Mr. Aaron Lawler. Discussion? No opposition? So moved.
Kenora Court, 650 feet.
Motion.
Motion by
Second.
Mr. Joseph, second by Ms. Casso. Any discussion? Discussion? No opposition? So moved.
Yorkton Avenue, 560 feet.
Motion.
Got a motion by Mrs. Castle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Joseph. Any more discussion? Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, Ricky, I know we don't see, we don't see as many as that we used to see that come up here for to be accepted in it. And I'm just asking that we're doing a better job at, looking at the roads to be accepted in it. At one time, you know, we would have a page and a half of these roads, so, and lately, we don't have that many coming and
Well,
being.
what's happening is, you know, different times of the year, they get a final, and usually got to serve out the bond period. Just so happened that you kind of slow down a little bit, but you got some more coming. Okay. Get ready.
All right. Mr. Cluett?
Yeah, Ricky, on that note, I just want, you know, this is about, what, 0.8 of a mile, 9
Yes,
tenths of a
that's
mile
what it
right
shows.
here, 8.7. That, of course, Mr. Rue, within the grand scheme of things, as life goes on, we talked about this for years, that we just keep adding on miles and miles of road that we have to take care of, and, you know, make sure that, we have a, you know, that the, you know, whatever we're doing, that we're looking at this into the future. That, Ricky, I appreciate your due diligence on looking at these roads and making them build them however they need to build them up to spec.
We watch them throughout the process.
That's it. Thank you.
Let me.
You reminded me
Go
of
on,
something, Mr. Clark, when you talked about that too, it's, which I failed to mention in our report, and that's our weed control along state highways. We did send a notice to DOTD. It went to the Secretary's office, and they basically, right now, we are not cutting any roads. We stopped cutting roads, maintenance of state highways. I talked to several people at DOTD, and they're willing to sit and talk some more. But they just don't know where they can get the money from, and they're looking at contracting that out. Now, one of the things I offered to them, I say, look, and they don't know exactly how they're gonna do it too. But I you know, rely on or support from the committee and everything if y'all want me to go forward with this. But one of the things that we might get in negotiations on is, right now it's costing me in excess, probably $200,000 a year more over what I'm getting, $156,000 from the state. I'd much rather, and it's something that we can discuss, but it's something that's on the table. I'd much rather give the state a check for $150,000 and have them contract everything out and in control of it and take all the calls and everything else to go with their $150,000 to contract everything out, instead of us hiring and having to worry about it and spend the same amount of money. You know, it's something, it's off our back. We're spending less money, a little bit less money than actually doing it, and they're contracting out to a third party. So it's almost a win-win for both, but it's something that, again, it might be on the table, something we might be talking about. And, again, we get the roads done, and it's costing us probably a little bit less than actually doing it ourselves. We don't have to worry, though, about it.
Before we go into discussion on this one, let me go ahead and move on this last road.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We don't have any more discussion, no opposition. We're gonna take in Yorktown Road, get that vote out the way. Ms. Terry, you had a question on?
Bill, that's an interesting concept. I strongly support privatization in any way that we possibly can, and certainly that is a look at
Right.
privatization. So I would certainly want to know more about that as you develop this with DOTD.
And that's another thing we can be talking about when I meet with DOTD. We have several meetings on it, but,
I mean, there may be reasons why we shouldn't, but at the same
Exactly.
time, it's an idea that's of interest.
that's it. Again, you know, it's just another option that we can be throwing out there probably.
Okay, Mr. Cluett.
Yeah, I just want to readdress that one real quick, is that we've had this discussion before, and it's a losing proposition. We're talking about, you've been asked tonight to try to define a budget that you might save a couple $100,000, all right? And I want to remind everybody that it's not just putting a tractor out there cutting grass, that we're responsible for debris pickup and everything on it. It's supposed to be a clean sweep before the grass is cut, where you don't blow paper and trash everywhere. And it's quite cumbersome. And generally, people don't pick up trash for free. I think we actually got a contract with that. So
That's right.
it's a cost endeavor. And that's another cost that we hadn't seen, that you throw in that pot.
And this, DOTD, actually, the guy I talked to said this is something they never thought about either. It's something that they may try to institute with other parishes, if in fact it's something that we can work out, and if in fact the council gives permission to go forward with it. It's something that may be a model for other parishes to do.
I'd be in favor of looking at it if we take another look at which roads are being cut.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I'm interested in that, but I would like to have a breakdown, exactly, since we do have the system to see how many man-hours we put on that road and exactly what it's costing us per hour to manage one of those roads, or per hour, or per mile, how much it's costing us, and give a real true figure on that, Bill. And I know you keep on hollering out those numbers, but once again, for me to make that decision, I like to see exactly what those numbers are and how it's affecting us.
And that's
So-
pretty easy. That's pretty easy. I've put them together already several times over the last umpteen years. But one of the things that the good part about putting it into a privatization, for instance, is the fact that for the most part for the parish, we're guaranteed our employees 40 hours a week. Rain or shine, we use them other places and everything, but basically when you're looking at this, we get $160,000 from the state to do the operation on state highways. Well, but they get paid 365 days. And you privatize this, and it's a whole different story. They get paid for the most part. If the contractor can't work, their employees are not working. Or they might be working another project in another parish or somewhere else doing something else. So, you can get a private company in here to probably do it a lot cheaper than what we do. We have a lot of lost time. So that's just one aspect of trying to privatize it, even if we have to supplement a little bit.
Yeah, and once again, I just want to make sure those numbers meet up, because 90% of the roads in the West Bank is state highways. So I just want to be able to make sure that I'm making the right decision based on the numbers and not based on assumption.
Sure.
Okay? All right.
I just make sure, so we can get those numbers next meeting? That's
Yeah,
what I'd like
no
to see too. You cover everything I was gonna
Yeah,
ask.
yeah.
Job, Jeff.
All right, guys, I guess we'll move on to Ms.
One
Terry.
thing.
One.
Bill, I wanted to mention that, and I'm sure you know about this, and maybe you can even add something to it. Today, it was announced that I-10 will be widened to 73. I think that's a wonderful thing for us, particularly in my district where we are, face the conflagration of 621, 73, 74, and all that, everybody in the parish trying to get to the interstate. So I want people to know that this is something we've been working on a long time, trying to get done, begging for, that we've had the tremendous support of our legislative delegation. And now the governor has stepped up and really made this possible for us. And so I'm very excited about it, but it's not going to be easy. When we have orange barrels all over the interstate, it's going to be slower rather than faster. And so it's going to be more complicated, and it's going to be more complicated for a long time, especially if we are looking at raising that road, which I understand in light of the flooding situation. In some places, they're going to do that, and I think it would be irresponsible of them not to do that. I mean, we know we have a problem there. Obviously, it needs to be raised. So I don't know what you know about all of that other than what has been in the news, but I would appreciate being kept well abreast of that project, what the timeline looks like on it, and then I think we're going to have to communicate with our folks about what it's going to be like.
That's exactly right. And if you notice, though, nothing was put in there pretty much on timeline of funding. The funding is a big question mark. And so you can do a lot of talk and say, we're going to make this happen, but then without the funding is a whole different issue. It's critical that we get this, our transportation plan off and going, because even though the multi-lane of I-10 is something that they're approaching it as a necessity, as a priority right now, which kind of pushes it up to the top of forest funding. But we need to make sure that still has to go through the MPO as part of urban planning. We need to make sure that our transportation plan coincides with their transportation plan and through the MPO. That's why it's critical to get our people on board, get our projects out there, get it integrated into the MPO and DOTD, one of which is the multi-laning of 61, but all the way through the parish, all the way at least to 22. But in addition to that is a service road type system and a whole different configuration of how we get on and off the interstate and how we plan on doing our future planning of the parish. So again, we need all that integrated into their plan from the get-go, even if it's a 25-year plan. So you're absolutely right. I'm glad to see it's there, but that's more impetus there to because of that to get our plan moving in conjunction with their plan.
Agreed. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Bill. Number 9.
Motion.
Motion adjourned by Mr. Kluwat, second by Mr. Joseph, and no opposition. Meeting is adjourned.